They called it Beacon Hill, but on certain nights, when the fog rolled thick over Millbrook Valley, the Hartwell mansion loomed like a black tooth jutting from the earth. Its 42 rooms were never silent, wood shifting in the walls, wind pressing against the old glass, the distant groan of timbers under a weight that was not there. But the East Wing had its own sound. A faint, almost imperceptible whisper that came from nowhere and everywhere, rushing the edge of thought like the memory of a voice you once knew. It was into this wing that Margaret Dunlap moved in October of 1829, the first bride of industrialist Jeremiah Hartwell. She was young, radiant, and utterly unaware that every woman who slept in that room would lose her mind before the year's end. Hartwell was not a man born to wealth. He forged himself from the grit of rural Ohio into a figure who could shape the destiny of railroads and towns. 6 feet tall, silver hair before 30, his eyes were the color of ice over deep water. In business, his rivals learned quickly. Jeremiah did not compete, he conquered. In society, he disarmed with charm, slipping past defenses like a key into a lock. That combination made him the most eligible bachelor in western Pennsylvania. The wedding was the social event of the decade, but beneath the candlelight and music, there was an unseen gaze, one that Margaret could not yet feel, though it was already upon her. By spring, her letters to her sister hinted at small changes. She claimed the house watched her, that sometimes it spoke when no one was near. At gatherings she grew distracted, eyes fixed not on people, but on corners of rooms, empty doorways, or her own reflection, as though it might move differently if she stared long enough. Her fixation deepened. She refused to sleep anywhere but the master bedroom, saying the rest of the house felt wrong without it. Servants whispered about the watching habit, how she would stand before the tall windows for hours, not looking out at the valley, but studying her own face in the glass, shifting her head slightly, as if trying to see herself from another world. The descent quickened one humid August evening. During a dinner with Pittsburgh businessmen, Margaret rose from the table, walked to the great dining room mirror, and began speaking to her reflection, listening as though it answered. Her voice shifted from laughter to panic, from panic to pleading. When Hartwell touched her arm, she recoiled, insisting she wasn't finished talking. That night the head housekeeper, Sarah Quinn, found her in the master bedroom at 3 a.m. naked, methodically tearing down the expensive French wallpaper. "I need to see what's underneath," Margaret said calmly. Beneath the paper was nothing but plaster and laths, yet she smiled with the satisfaction of someone who had confirmed a suspicion. Within weeks, she was unable to speak to anyone but her other selves. Reflections she believed lived inside the mirrors. Cover the glass, and she clawed at the cloth until her fingers bled. The house became a labyrinth of echoes and reflections, and she its prisoner. In September, she gathered every mirror in the mansion into the master bedroom, arranging them in some private geometry, then held an all-night conference with her reflections. By morning, she no longer recognized her husband. She was committed to the Pennsylvania Hospital for the Insane. Jeremiah, ever the picture of a grieving widower, sealed the master bedroom and moved upstairs. But the move was not to distance himself from its horrors. It was to wait. 3 years later, Margaret was dead, her mind having never returned. The town mourned, Jeremiah observed, and in the privacy of his study, he began collecting European medical texts about the human mind and how to break it. In the summer of 1834, a new bride arrived at the mansion. Elena Rodriguez, intelligent, vibrant, self-assured. She was exactly the kind of woman Jeremiah claimed he needed. Exactly the kind of woman the master bedroom would take. And it would start the same way, quietly, with a mirror. At first, Elena flourished in the Hartwell mansion. Unlike the shy and reserved Margaret, she was a natural hostess, her laughter warming the cold dining hall, her conversation holding the attention of men twice her age. She took to the master bedroom with pride, delighting in its tall windows, its imported wallpaper, and most of all, its glittering new collection of mirrors. The vanity was her favorite. She would sit each morning, brushing her dark hair, speaking casually to her maid Maria as silver light spilled through the glass. But over time, Maria noticed something. Elena's gaze never met her own eyes in the reflection. She stared just to the left, as though someone stood there, barely out of sight. "She's trying to tell me something important," Elena said one February morning, her voice steady, not fevered. "Maria, I have to listen carefully." By March, these quiet moments had grown into full conversations. Elena would pause, tilt her head, and respond to unheard questions. Unlike Margaret's frantic outbursts, Elena's exchanges were calm, even pleasant. "She tells me about the house," she explained, "about the family before us, about secrets in the walls." Jeremiah, this time, did not rush for the doctor. He observed, documented. His journals from this period reveal meticulous notes when the conversations occurred, which mirrors provoked them, what Elena claimed to learn. One mirror in particular, the great vanity in the master bedroom, produced the strongest responses, always between sunset and midnight. Then came the claim that changed everything. Elena told Maria that the previous Mrs. Hartwell was still in the house, trapped in the glass, trying to warn her about the truth behind the walls. The more she listened, the more certain she became that Margaret had not gone mad, but had been silenced. And with each whispered warning from the mirror woman, Elena began to act. By summer, she avoided social events without mirrors, growing restless and anxious if she could not consult her unseen advisor. And then, one sweltering August night, Jeremiah found her before the vanity, not speaking, but staring into the glass with a grief so deep it seemed bottomless. "She has shown me what you do to women in this room," Elena said without turning. Why, Margaret really went insane. She spoke of hidden passages, of women kept against their will, of medicines that were not medicines at all. She accused him of poisoning her, of bending her mind so her warnings would sound like madness. Jeremiah's mask never cracked. The next day, he called Dr. Henley, painting her as delusional, her mind unraveling in a near-perfect echo of Margaret's. But Elena was not ready to be taken. She searched the house with Maria and a handful of loyal servants, tapping on walls, moving furniture, hunting for the hidden architecture the mirror woman had described. And they found it a narrow panel behind the bedroom wardrobe that opened into a secret passage lined with observation holes. The shock among the staff was instant, but for Elena, it was vindication. "If this is true," she told Maria, "then everything is true." News of the discovery bled into Millbrook's gossip circles, and soon Jeremiah found himself facing questions he could not dismiss. It was then that Elena's father, Don Carlos Rodriguez, arrived unannounced and uninvited. He had come to see his daughter. What he found would ignite the chain of events that threatened to pull every secret from the walls of the Hartwell mansion. The meeting took place in the mansion's library, a room stripped of mirrors, lit only by the glow of an oil lamp. Don Carlos sat across from Jeremiah, his expression carved from stone. Elena was there too, tense, her eyes flicking toward the door as though expecting someone or something to join them. "I cannot speak without her," Elena said. "Bring me a mirror." "She knows things you don't." Jeremiah refused. Don Carlos leaned forward. "Then tell me without her," he said, and Elena did. She spoke of the mansion's first owner, of hidden rooms, of conversations held years before her arrival details, so precise that even Jeremiah's as carefully constructed calm began to fray. Don Carlos pressed. How could his daughter know of Jeremiah's private correspondence, his business dealings, the locations of hidden compartments? Each answer Elena gave was too exact to dismiss as coincidence. The doctor was summoned, but Henley's presence shifted the air. Don Carlos asked him directly. Could two healthy women develop identical symptoms in the same room by accident? The physician hesitated, then admitted that environmental factors, perhaps exposure to certain substances, could produce such effects. The implications were clear. What if the madness was induced? The library door opened. Sarah Quinn, the head housekeeper, stepped inside. Her voice shook, but her words were steady. Your daughter is telling the truth. I've seen it. The medicines, the passages, what they do to women here. Her testimony cracked the last defense. She had prepared the doses herself, bitter liquids from unmarked bottles, ordered through private correspondence. The pattern was always the same. More time in the master bedroom, more medicine, more mirrors. Don Carlos demanded proof. Elena led them upstairs, into the master bedroom, to the wardrobe. Behind it, the hidden panel opened into the narrow passage. But tonight, she did not stop there. She pressed her hands to a section of wall, and it swung open, revealing a compartment stuffed with documents. By lamplight, they read Jeremiah's meticulous surveillance logs. Politicians, judges, industrialists, their secrets recorded and used for blackmail. There were letters from a German physician, Dr. Henry Zimmermann, detailing treatments for troublesome women, mercury compounds, laudanum derivatives, plant extracts, poisons designed to cloud the mind while leaving the body intact. Margaret's madness had not been an illness. It had been an operation, and Elena's was nearly complete. Don Carlos turned to Jeremiah. She leaves tonight, he said. And these leave with her. The doctor examined the headache medicine. His face drained as the truth surfaced. With the poison stopped, Elena's mind began to clear. The mirror woman she'd spoken to for months had never been a ghost. She was the last lucid part of herself, fighting to hold on, feeding her clues until she could piece the truth together. The authorities acted swiftly. Margaret's body was exhumed. The poisons confirmed. Dr. Zimmermann was found in Philadelphia, his experiments linked to a network of men who paid to have women silenced. The trial that followed consumed Pennsylvania. The jury needed only hours. Guilty on all counts: murder, attempted murder, conspiracy, fraud. Sentence: death by hanging. On the morning of his execution, Jeremiah Hartwell stood on the gallows without a tremor. The crowd waited for a confession, but he gave none. The trapdoor fell, and the man who had built an empire on mirrors and poison swung into history. The mansion was sold, gutted, its passages sealed, its mirrors removed. But for decades after, boarders whispered of strange reflections in its windows, faces that did not belong, watching from the east wing, as if waiting for someone to listen. Some claimed it was the mirror woman. Others said it was the house itself. And in the quiet hours before dawn, when the wind pressed against the glass, it still had its own language.